Hello, hello. This is the My Artifact episode number 3721. Today's date is November 24, 2025. It's been almost like morning at 9:03 a.m. All right, let's just jump into the question. All right, the question is, what if profit were ties to a social impact? Okay, that's a really good question. Okay, first of all, what exactly is this question and why am I asking this question to myself? This is what if question. Why am I asking this question to myself? What if question is always really interested way to give the answer. It kind of like a force you to think about that reality. And when I try to think about that reality, I'm kind of like utilizing my information and knowledge do I have to kind of like create this reality. And somehow it kind of like felt really good. Somehow it kind of like somebody, it kind of like forced me to utilize my knowledge and information and things like that as much as it possible way, because what if question is not meant to be kind of like a somebody have a right answer. It kind of like a somebody depends on what is actually your opinion regarding about this thing. And this is what kind of like a things. Disclaimer: the information that I'm trying to tell you is not exactly right or is not exactly wrong either. It's raw, it's unfiltered, it's just my opinion. So do not believe in any kind of like information that I'm saying, or do not seek for any kind of like information that I'm saying. It's just an opinion, and opinion are subjective. All right, now let's proceed. Now regarding about the question says that what if profit were ties to a social impact? What exactly is this question? What exactly is this thing? Like basically is this thing na ki the question means that ki what if like a profit, like basically every companies are actually kind of like earning some sort of amount of money. Okay, yeah, that some certain amount of money that companies are actually earning are kind of like a somebody depends on how much they kind of like a somebody make their kind of like a society good, or how much they are kind of like doing their social thing is good or not. Okay, if you still don't really understand, let me give you the context. Okay, yeah. um let's just say there is a company. Okay, yeah. The company is actually a bit more focused regarding about money and profit. Okay, yeah. Because it's this thing that na ki when they have kind of like a somebody earning profit, they will kind of like a somebody share that money, the company will grow and things and that. Like basically in the end it all kind of like somebody comes to the money, because having more money is kind of like somebody best for everybody. Okay, and it win for everybody, right? But still when it try to do this thing, it kind of like a suddenly impact on social, it kind of like impact on society, it kind of like impact very wrong in the society, and that is not really good thing. Okay, yeah. Take an example as a OnlyFan. Okay, OnlyFan is a company who is kind of like a something, a platform where kind of like a somebody you can share your nude photos or any kind of like a somebody nude video on this platform, and the people who wanted to kind of like see that photo or video, they have to pay that some certain amount of money. No, basically is this thing the owning. If you are kind of like the owner of the OnlyFan company, then probably what is actually your profit? Your profit, like what is actually your kind of like a thinking is that you want that ki more and more creators should supposed to be start their OnlyFan, so that they would kind of like a something earn some sort of amount of money and you also get the commission too. Okay, yeah. So this is what kind of like a simply thing. Now, how much it kind of like impact on social, how much it kind of like impact on society? It impact on society very wrong. Like basically is this thing, then every woman and every girl are kind of like a simply see this thing as a easy money. You just have to kind of like a simply shoot yourself nude in front of the camera and that's it. Okay, yeah. And you are earning so much amount of money, and that's a very easy amount of money. So the people or kind of like a somebody, the women or the people who wanted to kind of like a join this particular platform, they don't need any kind of like a skills to develop or things like that. No, they just have to kind of like a simply showcase nude in front of the camera and that's it. And this kind of like a simply create a very wrong message to the society, and this is not really good thing. I know sex is a really essential thing, love is a really essential thing too. It's not really that key. I'm kind of like a somebody against with this thing. But if you do this thing kind of like a somebody authentically, that is good. But probably in front of social, in front of kind of like a hundreds of people, you are kind of like a showing nudity and things like that. We already have a porn. Why we have kind of like a this thing? But still, if I'm kind of like a thinking from one point of perspective, that is completely wrong. because OnlyFan is kind of like a for the normal people. People are considered as a kind of like a assembly of virus, or kind of like assembly the something like the not good thing. But the people who are kind of like a somebody being on this industry, we are kind of like a somebody other companies are kind of like a take advantage. Let's just say I am a kind of like a somebody a kind of like a somebody a hooker. Okay, yeah, basically I'm the kind of like a somebody hooker, and I'm kind of like a somebody earning money by kind of like a doing this business. Okay, yeah. Now basically is this thing na ki OnlyFan is a kind of like a somebody giving me such a platform that I would kind of like somebody earning significant amount of money. Because of that ki doing in a traditional way it's not gonna possible, because the middleman kind of like a takes so much amount of money and I didn't really get that much amount of money too. Okay, yeah, like basically money is for them is really essential, and money is for me is also really essential too. And for me, I'm kind of like putting all the 100% effort, and kind of like only 70% of the contribution takes the middleman, and this is not really good. So OnlyFan is kind of like giving me that platform, that kind of like somebody I have kind of like somebody almost like a 70 to 80% of the contribution of my work, and 20% OnlyFan people takes the commission. That is really good thing for me. So basically is this thing for the normal people, OnlyFan is a kind of like considered as a kind of like a somebody the chaos, and kind of like a somebody the not good thing for society. But it's kind of like a somebody adding new waste for the people who are kind of like a somebody. It's kind of like a somebody really good platform for the such a people who are kind of like a somebody be in this business for years and things like that, and middlemen are kind of like a somebody taking their money and stuff. For those people, OnlyFan is a really good platform, and which is somewhat something really good. And by the way, OnlyFan is not kind of like meant for public. Okay, yeah, basically is this thing you have to be kind of like only pay upfront amount of money, and then after that you can access that thing. It's not that kind of like somebody is this you can open the platform and you would kind of like somebody nude photos and things like that. No, it's not really that thing too. So basically is this thing na ki does every company are kind of like simply focus on profit and money? Yes, they do that, but probably is this thing na the right now we are living in kind of like a 2025, and probably is this thing looking like we are not judged by the product, by their kind of like somebody how much money that they are earning or things like that. We're actually focused on what they kind of like provide the value, and how much I kind of like somebody resonate. Respect is kind of like a something is matter. Okay, yeah. When you have not that much respect, then probably you will not have that kind of like somebody earn that much amount of money, even if your product is really good or not. Okay, yeah. Let me give you another example. Okay, yeah. Let's just compare the two people, Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. Okay, yeah. Who do you think you have kind of like so much respect? Probably almost like a 80 to 90% people might gonna say Elon Musk. Why not kind of like a Mark Zuckerberg? Because like basically both are really good, both are kind of like not really that bad. But problem is that na ki the Elon Musk has an idea regarding about making the future much more better way and things like that. But the Mark Zuckerberg's idea is regarding about kind of like somebody earning so much amount of money and kind of like stealing someone ideas and things like that. Like basically I kind of like admire that ki Mark Zuckerberg kind of like made a Facebook, but that's it na. Like basically the person has to be stick with the Facebook. Why they buy a WhatsApp and Instagram and other kind of like a social media stuff is kind of like somebody what they wanted to achieve. Okay, yeah. I don't know. I'm not kind of like a blaming Mark Zuckerberg is kind of like a somebody very evil person, but it's somehow he is like a basically he's still a lot of amount of money. He's still a lot of amount of data from the people, and kind of like a sell those data to the third party vendors and things and that is not really good thing. Okay, yeah. And like basically just my opinion, I might be kind of like completely wrong, but I'm kind of like a bit really honest. Okay, yeah. But still is this thing that I just also understand that he like basically Mark Zuckerberg doesn't really wants to be kind of like a somebody he kind of like a millions of people will gonna hate him. No, he also kind of like a try to prevent those things. He will try to prevent those kind of like actions and things and that, but somehow something is meant to be happen. Like basically is this thing when the Facebook is launched, when this kind of like somebody the Instagram or any social media platform is actually launched, at that time kind of like a data privacy or is not even a thing at that time. Okay, like basically everyone kind of like share their photos and info and things and that and data is like basically I'm talking about the average point of perspective. It might be kind of like somebody data privacy might be a thing in the US, but other part of the global kind of like they don't really consider as a kind of like a thing that their information is kind of like somebody very much kind of like act as a weapon and things like that. No, not really at all. At that time, this is not even concept. So basically, is this thing that ki, it's not kind of like a simply the Mark Zuckerberg made a mistake. No, it's kind of like a things that na ki, it kind of like a simply happened. It just kind of like a simply is this thing that ki, they are kind of like a taking it data. They don't really consider that kind of like a simply wrong. But soon after time, we realize that no, this is a kind of like a simply wrong, and then we are kind of like blaming the Mark Zuckerberg and things like that. So basically, is this thing in this particular context? Okay, yeah, like basically Mark Zuckerberg kind of like simply did such a crime before the crime is not even exist. Okay, yeah. So this is what it is. This is what kind of like a things that, but still, it's just my opinion. I might be kind of like completely wrong. I'm kind of like a very third person, and I'm not really sure what is actually happened. I'm kind of like a telling from the overall perspective and things like that, and I'm kind of like completely wrong. I don't really have any kind of like a simply wrong opinion regarding about Mark Zuckerberg. I do respect that particular person, the way that he did, the way that that particular person have a kind of like ideas, and the way that he did kind of like somebody invented the Facebook was kind of like a really good. And basically is this thing I love when the Facebook is actually launched, and I it kind of like simply create a lot of memories in my head to kind of like using Facebook, and it's kind of like a really wonderful idea and things like that. Whatever. So this is just kind of like simply my opinion. But what I'm saying, the question is actually about that ki, what if the company is actually a bit more focused regarding about their kind of like simply profit are ties to the social impact. Like basically is this thing, their companies are actually growth regarding about how much they impact on the social life, how much they impact their social life. And basically, if I'm gonna say this thing, like every kind of like a company are kind of like a meant to do this thing. Okay, yeah, every company, like basically, yeah, like there are a couple of company who are kind of like just focus about money, but still money is also really essential too. It's not really that ki money is not really essential. But problem is that na ki, like basically is this thing, not every company or not everything is kind of like a simply meant to be kind of like a simply focused just on money. Like basically is this thing, when we try to establish any kind of like a company, we have to focus on what kind of like a product or services that we are kind of like a delivered or cater to the people and things like that. Example is this thing, that e-commerce website. Okay, let's just say I am running e-commerce website. Let's just say I am running Amazon website. Okay, yeah. So basically I am the owner of the Amazon website. Then how do I supposed to be earn money? Okay, yeah, more money, like basically gaining profit na. So how do I supposed to do this thing? How do I supposed to do these things? So look, basically is this thing, I should supposed to be advertise the people that you should supposed to be buy from Amazon or things like that. Also, I'm gonna make sure that I in my website I will have kind of like a selling all the kind of like a equipment or all the kind of like assembly the things that actually available on the Amazon, like if the people wants to book or clothes or any kind of like a stuff, electronic items or helicopter parts, all these things you're gonna buy from the Amazon and things like that. Also, I'm gonna make sure my services is really good. I'm gonna make sure that the customer is actually every corner of the world. I was supposed to be provide my product to that particular customer as quickly as possible as it can. So this is kind of like a simply way that makes my kind of like a profit grows and things like that. Okay, yeah. So that I would kind of like earn money and things like that. Now basically how much it impact on the social, how much it impact on the society. Like basically if I'm kind of like a growing so much amount of money, how much it kind of like impact on society. Well, basically I'm running on the kind of like e-commerce website. So what kind of like impact on the society is that the people who are kind of like somebody didn't really have access to buy any kind of like somebody stuff, I'm getting that stuff by the Amazon. Let's just say I need a kind of like somebody badminton racket which kind of like only available in Japan. So basically is this thing, I could kind of like buy that particular racket from the Japan and kind of like assembly. Yes, I would have to pay kind of like some sort of amount of kind of like assembly money for the transaction and things like that, but I'm getting the product. Okay, I don't really have to hassle between that where is this product came from and this and that and nothing really at all. It just I'm getting that thing, which is kind of like a really good. Okay, yeah, I'm not saying is that basically is this earning money is a really wrong thing. No, basically is this earning money is somewhat something really good thing for them and good thing for us too, because of that because of they are actually earning money from us, they are actually providing the services as best that it could. Okay, yeah, like basically is this thing, I kind of like somebody found out that my grandfather is actually live in the village, and they also kind of like somebody gave they also have a kind of like somebody privilege that Amazon services actually provide to the village too, and that is really good. That is kind of like something really good, like in a not in not a kind of like a somebody fast, like basically in that particular day you will get the product, like basically you will get the product within a 2-3 days, and which is somewhat something really good. Okay, yeah. Another thing is that na ki basically before that people usually buy some sort of stuff from the store and things like that, and our choices are kind of like a very much limited. We don't know what is actually the things that we buy is kind of like a really good or not. Okay, yeah. And we also don't know is that the things that we are buy is kind of like something very expensive or very cheap or not, because we don't really have any kind of like some comparison in between. But because of the social media platform, because of the kind of like e-commerce website, let's just say because of my website, because of the Amazon website, I kind of like a compare my product, which one is actually good, which one is actually not, and I'm kind of like a taking very kind of like a right decision for myself, that which kind of like a product should I supposed to be buy and things like that, so that I would supposed to be save my money as well as I'm kind of like a getting very good amount of product. Obviously for that particular purpose you have to kind of like a think dig deeper, kind of like a compare your product in multiple ways, and then you kind of like a buy the right product for you, which is kind of like a really good. This kind of like a simply the privilege we don't really have by kind of like a go to the store and kind of like a buy the stuff. It's nothing really at all. As well as kind of like a buy, if we are kind of like a simply buying from the kind of like e-commerce website, we will get variety of the product. Okay, yeah, like variety of the clothes, fashions, and any kind of like a product, we will get the variety from it, and which is also really good too. Okay, yeah. There is also kind of like a another kind of like a the another kind of like yeah, impact on the society. Okay, let's just say Amazon is not kind of like a the store which kind of like a make all the product and things like that. No, Amazon is a kind of like a the cluster of multiples of kind of like a store. Like basically if you are kind of like a somebody making a kind of like a bottles. Okay, yeah, a kind of like a clay bottles. Okay, yeah. So basically this is what you have to do is that you have to be kind of like a enlist yourself that you are kind of like a the store owner, and you wanted to kind of like share you wanted to kind of like sell your product through the Amazon. And when you do this thing, you will kind of like getting some sort of amount of money. Like basically I'm let's just say I'm from kind of like some sort of part of the some sort like a different corner of the village. Okay, yeah. And I cannot able to access almost like a millions of people at the once, because I am not able to do that. I don't really have that much infrastructure, but Amazon does that have too. So basically I am enlisted as a kind of like somebody a provider of the Amazon, or kind of like a shopkeeper as a Amazon, or kind of like somebody a retailer as Amazon. I'm kind of like somebody selling my product through the Amazon, which kind of like a really good. I'm kind of like earning some sort of amount of revenue and things and that, and I should not supposed to be kind of like a go into the kind of like some big cities and things and that, and kind of like a focusing on the kind of like a business and things like that. It's not. Okay, yeah. So basically this thing, does Amazon company is kind of like a somebody providing kind of like a social impact while they are kind of like earning money? Yes, they do that. Okay, is it bad? No, it's not really bad. It's kind of like simply good things too. Okay, yeah. Like obviously there is some sort of thing is also really bad too. Like people are kind of like somebody habit of kind of like buying so many stuff they don't really need it and things like that. But still it's kind of like somebody depend on them. It's kind of like somebody depend on that kid. Does they have kind of like a lot of amount of money? They can buy whatever they want and things like that. So basically every action comes with the consequences, and basically Amazon is a kind of like a somebody company where consequences are really good consequences. Yeah, there is some sort of bad consequences too, but some sort of like there is a good consequences are actually far more better than that, bigger than that. So that is also really good. And yeah, like basically this thing I'm not saying is that every company are kind of like simply focusing on the profit. Most of the company are actually focusing on the values and things like that. Let's just say I am the owner of the Lamborghini. Okay, or I am the owner of the Lamborghini. Lamborghini is kind of like a super sports car. Now basically is this thing, I already knew that my product is a kind of like a very expensive product, and my product will not kind of like a buy every particular person. So I should supposed to be focus on my product as much as premium as it can. So basically is this thing, only premium customer is also gonna buy. So basically is this thing, I am actually earning more amount of money, is kind of like a making my product is kind of like a bit more refined and bit more kind of like a something better in every possible way. Okay, and if I kind of like do this thing, I'm kind of like focusing on engineering, focusing kind of like make my cars is kind of like much more faster, much more kind of like a less efficient with the fuel, kind of like some aerodynamics and things, and that it kind of like a create and progress and things like that. Right now, like basically look at the car 100 years ago and look at the car today. Like basically we have seen the massive difference in between. This is what actually happened when we are kind of like somebody seeing the kind of like some perfection through the time. Okay, we are kind of like focusing on our product is kind of like a bit more refined fine and things every single year, and that's why we are kind of like simply improving that product, and kind of like when we try to improve that product, as well as kind of like we improve the infrastructure regarding about the assembly line, the people we get to know regarding about all those stuff and things like that. So that's why we are kind of like simply making the product as much as better, as well as kind of like make the society as well as better, because of kind of like simply we are improving technology as well as kind of like infrastructure, as well as with the people associated with that infrastructure too. So which is that thing. Okay, yeah, like this is what it is. This is what kind of like profit, like basically is this thing now, people actually kind of like look at the profit is only one way, that kind of like somebody, that particular person actually earning so much amount of money, then that particular person is kind of like very crippled and things like that. Like this is what kind of like some mentality that we have in kind of like India. Like basically ये बंदा अमीर है तो ये जरूर हरामखोर है. So this is what kind of like a mentality that actually exists in India. But right now we are kind of like shifting towards kind of like realizing that okay, rich people are kind of like somebody adding so much really impact to the society and things like that by their work and stuff like that. Okay, yeah, which is somewhat something really good. But still there are some sort of companies are kind of like not meant to be really good. Let's just say there is a weapon manufacturing company. I am the kind of like owner of Lockheed Martin. Now Lockheed Martin is a kind of like simply the arms or weapon manufacturing company. So how do I supposed to be earn more amount of money? Obviously by wars and things like that. So basically when the war is actually happened, there is no society left to kind of like make the society matter. Okay, yeah, because in the war, like societies and cities and kind of like countries are actually died and the things like that. It kind of like create destruction. So basically, this thing, my profit is kind of like somebody really very wrong. Okay, yeah. So I shouldn't supposed to be kind of like somebody do this thing. I shouldn't supposed to be kind of like things. And by the way, we also have that laws and things like that. If I'm kind of like running the weapon manufacturing company or things like that, then my company will not enlist in kind of like somebody the stock markets or things or that. I don't really have that much privilege in kind of like a weapon manufacturing company, because there is a lot of laws and regulation are actually exist in their thing. So yeah, basically is this thing, if I'm kind of like a running manufacturing company, I won't be able to kind of like make that much profit, because it's kind of like completely depends on kind of like a destruction and wars and things like that. Yeah, and as well as laws are not meant to be kind of like a let me do my profit because of that thing ki I'm kind of like a weapon manufacturing company or things and that. All right, so this is what it is. This is what kind of like assembly is this thing. Okay, yeah. So what I'm trying to tell you is this thing that ki every company are kind of like trying to do kind of like something really much more better way to kind of like gaining the profit, as well as kind of like somebody impacting on how much it impact on the how much impact on the society and things like that. And somewhat almost like a 90% of the company are kind of like doing the same thing. Like there are almost like a 10% of the company who are kind of like focusing on the kind of like a profit and things and that. But still, like basically is this thing, if you are kind of like that particular person who thinks that no, like basically every company is actually run on profits and they don't really think about the societies and things and that, dude, you don't really kind of like look that way. Like basically there are kind of like some multiples of consequences that kind of like leads to kind of like some optimistic and growth and things like that, because every action comes with the consequences, good consequences and bad consequences. And obviously that particular that particular company is actually earning some sort of amount of money is because of they are kind of like providing that much amount of good consequences. Obviously these terms are kind of like associated with the modern world and things like that. If you went to kind of like a backward, then probably this statement will not gonna kind of like completely true. But when we are kind of like leading to a future, we are kind of like realizing that we have kind of like established some sort of laws regarding about business, regarding about how do we supposed to earn money. It's kind of like a simply way that kind of like earning money by the right way and things like that. I'm not saying is that you cannot able to earn money by the wrong way. You can do this thing, and there are a bunch of kind of like people who are kind of like earning money by the wrong way and things like that. But still is kind of like somebody, most of the company are kind of like somebody earning, getting amount of profit and earning so much amount of money by kind of like somebody adding values to the society and things like that, which is kind of like a really good, which is kind of like a leads to kind of like somebody something really much more better way. Okay, yeah. So yeah, this is what it is. This is what kind of like I'm trying to tell you. Okay, yeah. You just have to kind of, if you didn't really see that particular stuff, then look at that particular stuff. There is always kind of like a good side of that particular thing. Okay, yeah. Now I am kind of like a very optimistic person. I'm kind of like a thinking that like there is always good things that can happen. That's why I'm kind of like a seeing very kind of like a bright stuff. And that's why I'm kind of like a mention really good stuff. Now there are also bad stuff too. Okay, yeah. And it's kind of like something depends on who you are and what you are. Okay, I'm counting kind of like a optimistic thing. I'm kind of like counting, I'm hoping for kind of like a better thing is actually happen. I'm kind of like a do that thing for them. Okay, yeah. But I also kind of like make sure that there is also bad thing too, and I just have to think about that perspective too. Okay, yeah. So yes, but still I'm kind of like sensing that You and I kind of like somebody understand what is actually right and what is actually wrong. That's why kind of like other people too, and that's why we are kind of like somebody making the society or making the kind of like action towards what is actually right for us or what is actually right for the society and things like that. Okay, yeah, and this is where kind of like things actually happen. This is where kind of like somebody we are kind of like focusing on much more better things. And obviously every companies are kind of like do this thing, like let's just say SpaceX, Tesla, or any kind of like a stuff. Yeah, like money is kind of like a somewhat something really involved in over there in their particular context. By they are earning money by kind of like somebody providing kind of like a good value to the society, which is a really good thing too. Okay, yeah, which is a really good thing too. Oh, right. So yeah. All right, this is it. I should supposed to end here. The way that I'm talking right now, the way that I'm talking really fast is like fuck, 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 fuck. I don't know why I'm talking that much fast. Whatever. And this is it. And thank you.